I have a tool review today. I'm pretty excited about it. Let's check it out. NOEVSBIG sent me their helping hands, and I have to say, just looking at the box, it looks like they're going to be so much more than just helping hands. Let's open it up and take a look. Pretty well packaged. We have some alligator clips, several packs, gooseneck arms with magnetic bases for the alligator clips, a table vise with magnetic clip, a one-page manual, some of their other products, LED light and magnifier, also with a magnetic base, USB powered, the USB charger, rubber feet, board holder stands, magnetic base. We'll get into these a little more in depth later. Our big heavy base plate, which is magnetic, clamp, and the adjustable base for that clamp. And this is everything that comes in the box. I'm going to start throwing things together here, and then we'll come back and do some explaining and demonstration. A quick thing to note about these alligator clips. You put them in the arm here, and they provide you with these little thumb screws, and this is how you secure them in. Once you have them in the position you want them in, tighten them down, and they'll stay there. These magnets are no joke. They provide you with a lot of spare clips. That's really cool. This clamp is super nice and really versatile. You can position it in many different ways. It's one of those really versatile ball joint mounts. Once you get it in the position you want, just tighten it and it'll stay exactly there. This is going to be probably handy for hot air in my case. These are the board mounts. So the board mounts work in a couple of different ways. They have a divot or they have the spike. In the case of like a Nintendo Switch board, you need to use the divots. Position the board in a way that it won't move so that you can work on it. Or if your board has holes, you can use the holes instead with the spikes. This board is not a great example. That would be a better example. Pretty steady. One improvement I think they could have made on these would be to make these little ridges stand out a little bit so that you could have various different levels where you could mount a board instead of just having this and one level. Everyone who does repair, either as a hobby or as a profession, will eventually find they need a bench vise for something. And this is very nice and it's very sturdy. You can tighten it up, make it sit where you want, and very hard to get off the plate. And then we get to the magnifying light with the LED ring. I believe it has a 3x magnifying lens on it. You won't get a very good view through the camera of what you actually see with your eyeballs, but you can solder through that. It's not as good as my, Amscope microscope by any means, but I can definitely see it. And I could definitely solder if I needed to. You can change the brightness and color temperature. When I first started soldering, I did so under a magnifying lens, very much like this. Sufficient for most any through-hole and large surface mount soldering. And you may be asking, what are the most useful purposes for helping hands? And one of the most useful purposes is soldering wire. At some point, you're going to have to build test cables for your devices or something of that nature. A lot of the test cables you get in will require some assembly, and being able to maneuver the wires so that you can get a soldering iron on them to solder them together. Obviously, the better way would be to wrap them a little bit, but anyway, like so, without having to hold it or maneuver it with one hand and try to solder with the other, you could actually feed solder and solder those wires together. And because the alligator clips have a little bit of a coating on them, you can use them to actually hold a motherboard and to hold it steady. Whereas these things are wholly inadequate. You almost always need 2 sets of them to do anything, and the maneuverability is limited to non-existent. Whereas these, you can almost do just about anything you can think of as far as positioning goes. And this is probably what I would be using the clamp for. Hot air positioning. You can kind of position it where you need it, in what direction you need it, lock it down. It'll stay where you want it. This will come in handy if you're trying to remove like a big BGA with maybe a sucker or something like that, where you need 2 hands or a couple pairs of tweezers, and you just need the hot air to be stationary. I'm kind of excited to see if it will work on my preheater. And it certainly will. And that's a very exciting extra feature that they probably didn't intend, but it's going to give me some versatility when I'm working on the preheater that I didn't have before. Now, I was a little bit mistaken about the ridges on the sides. They actually are indented enough to mount the board lower. They could be a little bit more pronounced, but it is possible to get it quite sturdy in there. Very nice. And that just means you have lots of versatility as far as getting it under your scope at a height that is optimal to work with. So overall, I'd have to give this thing a big thumbs up. I think they could make these ridges a little more pronounced, but other than that, I think this thing is versatile, has lots of cool options, and I think it's actually going to be useful to me even outside the applications of this platform. You'll definitely be seeing this in part or in full in use in future videos. Like I said, overall, I'm a big fan of these things. If you'd like to get one, click my link in the description. If you got value out of this video, I think you'll get value out of this one, and I'll see you there.